to be excited for the next couple weeks as our health is rounding back into form. Our players have an opportunity to see someone other than their teammates in practice every day. So typically this time of year, guys get tired of practicing against each other. They want to bang against another team, and so we're excited for that to be the case here in the next week or so.
Chris, you want to start us off?
So how's recruiting going?
We like where we are. We're I don't know what we're allowed to comment on now, what we're not, but we're pleased. We have a staff that's very connected, and they work really, really well together. And then you factor in how aggressive our players are in recruiting and wanting good players to join this program. It's been fun to be in the recruiting foxhole with this group.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, and then the role that the Big House plays and football Saturdays play with some of these basketball recruits and the whole experience.
Obviously, the Big House, our football team, provides such a great environment. There's energy on campus. There's people are out, so you're meeting a lot of people. As we all know, it's awesome. It's such a great game day environment. It does so much for this university, and all the recruits we've had in have enjoyed that experience.
Kellen?
Thanks for doing this again. So obviously, we have media day today, but then we have a pro day later on today too. Can you go through just what that's going to consist of today? What kind of workouts guys are going to be doing? What we can expect to see later on today? It's
actually very similar to a normal practice for us. We'll do some shooting drills, competition shooting drills. We've added a few that are similar to NBA type combine workouts. They'll get a lighter lift than usual, so they're a little fresher. And then we'll play 1-on-1, we'll play 3-on-3, we'll play 5-on-5, and the beautiful thing about the NBA now, they like to see your guys play. They enjoy watching them play against competition and bodies. So it'll be very, very normal as far as the structure of it. Obviously, the players will have a little hop in their step, just like they will when they're fans in the building.
Do you happen to know how many scouts are going to be here today to watch the players and stuff?
I don't have the exact total.
Okay.
They communicate with different people. There will be a lot.
Okay.
Coach, all the way in the back.
Coach, what's kind of your vision for the identity of this team, or is it something that you kind of figure out along the way more in the season?
We'll certainly find out more along the season. You don't know your warts. For example, if we have a great practice and we're shooting it well, your first inclination as a coach is, man, we're not contesting shots, or we're giving up too many threes, whatever the case. So you never really know. I think the staple of our program will be what type of pace we're playing with. How are we moving the basketball? Do we look like we enjoy sharing it? And then defensively, are we playing with great force and energy and passion? And I think those things we'll be able to look on the court and see if that's the case. And then the last thing is, how long can we sustain those things if we are to a point where we're doing them? But when you bring in this many guys, we're going to be a work in progress until probably January, February. Because if we show that we can do something well, then the other team's going to try to take that away. And can we continue to improve and add and layer and counter? Those are the things that to be seen. But we have a group that they enjoy each other. They seem to have great relationships amongst themselves in the locker room, and hopefully that carries over into enjoying playing with each other.
Go ahead.
Sorry. And obviously, you've been out, with the students, engaging with the students. Why is it so important for you to be kind of on those front lines of building a relationship with the students here?
Obviously, the visibility piece, but anytime we can get in front of large groups, we had a philosophy before that we had to build a program one fan at a time, brick by brick. Here, I think some of those might be cinder walls. We can build it with a wall at a time. And there's so much tradition and history here that if we put a good product on court, we play the right way, we think we'll be able to attract the fans back in droves.
Down front here with John.
Coach, you've talked about your up-tempo style and how hard you want guys to go. Can you project at all how deep you might go in any one game with the number of guys that will see the floor for meaningful minutes?
John, great question. I think today probably 9 would get sustained minutes, would be considered in the rotation, or they've all played at a level that you would consider them starters to an extent. We're still tweaking with combinations because of health reasons. We haven't seen Vlad with Will enough, or Danny with Will, or whatever the case. So there's still a lot we have to figure out. But yeah, I would say right now we would go 9 deep, and typically we're 8 or 9 deep, and we've even gone as deep as 10. because of the pace, the number of possessions, and we still have to find ways to speed the game up defensively. We found ways to get up and down offensively and push tempo, but defensively, the last few years we haven't been able to find ways to get teams to shoot it quicker, and so we're still tweaking a little bit defensively, trying to find ways to get even to squeeze a few more possessions out.
Let's stay here with Tom.
Yeah, Dusty, blank canvas, coaches are starting over from scratch, 9 new players. I'm just curious how you can assess, looking at the profession of coaching right now. You had a prominent coach just resign yesterday, or whatever reason, but it just seems like it's not sustainable. You're gonna be able to do this constant turnover. How are you taking on that challenge of a brand new team? You're in a brand new program, brand new university to you. How do you process that whole process,
Well, Tom, obviously we lost a Titan today in coaching. We didn't lose him, but we have someone, Tony Bennett is someone in our game that I don't know many young coaches that didn't look up to the way they were as people, the way they carried themselves. I mean, especially for a former mid-major, low-major player, whatever Wisconsin, Green Bay was at the time, to make the NBA as a first-round pick, to have a successful career and then restarted as a graduate assistant, I think he was, for his father at Washington State. Just a testament to all that's good with college basketball. The way he handled the 16 loss and bounced back to win a national championship. So that's a great question on Coach Bennett. As far as myself, I'm someone that I take pride on always planning pretty far in advance. Security is important to me. You just kind of have to shift the way you think and realize you're not going to have as much control a year, 2 years, 3 years in advance like you did in the past, and you simply have to and try to enjoy things you can't control. We're going to have to recruit more. We're going to have.
So is it a 1 year, almost one year at a time mentality when you approach the profession?
We're not approaching it that way. I think at times you probably have to, but for us, we're aggressively recruiting a lot of high school players because we believe in what Michigan has to offer. We believe in our ability to develop relationships, help players get better. And we think those things will play a part in retention. Obviously, then you factor in the NIL dollars and the opportunities off the court. So I guess it might be, I don't know what the word would be, but we might be a little bit naive, but we think we can continue to help guys get better and retain talent. So for us, it's not just 1 year, but obviously we always have to be one eye looking towards the future while the other eye looking towards the very near future.
Anthony?
You guys have a pair of exhibition games in the next week or so. What does a successful week look like in that regard in terms of questions that you guys want to answer?
Anyway, the first thing with Oakland is we know that they're going to play extremely aggressive and hard against us. That game made sense for a lot of reasons. To get into a tournament type environment, we're playing several neutral site games too, where we're not going to be on campuses, NBA type arenas. So logistically, it made sense. It's close. Also, with the Big Ten travel, we didn't really want to get on an airplane to go play an exhibition game or a scrimmage. And the last thing is their zone. I think if we weren't playing Oakland right now, we probably wouldn't have any zone concepts in. We probably wouldn't be familiar or comfortable with zone. We would be so focused on all the other things that you see 90 to 95% of the time. So it allows you to get a segment of the game in early, and then I guess the reps will cause comfort. Typically, you want to play this game in a closed scrimmage so you can play longer than 40 minutes and you can get more reps. And you're more focused on just development, but obviously in front of our fans, we never want to lose. So there'd be more of a competitive spirit, I think, than there would be in a close scrimmage.
We'll stay at that table with Reiner.
Yeah, how do you balance because when you were assembling this roster, obviously you have to basically, put together a whole new roster, but how do you balance the short-term goals of what you want to accomplish this season with the long-term, vision, and is it possible that you have to make sacrifices one way or the other, to accomplish both goals?
You definitely have to. There's give and take, and so until we've seen our young guys do it in games, you never really know. You're simply projecting the future. You're making bets based on this or that. So it's tough. But we just feel like we continue to add really good players who have great character and have the basketball attributes that we appreciate, the toughness, the skill, the shooting, the unselfishness. Then it's our job to figure it out. There's going to be problems. We're going to have some bad performances, but it's going to be our jobs as coaches, probably the number one job, find solutions to those problems. And right now we don't know what we can anticipate what several of them will be. We think we know what is going to give us problems this year, but you never know for sure. You never know how you guys are going to respond. So but it's a whole different dynamic, but we can't, once again, it's one of those things where it's all new, so we don't know. There's not like there's 5 or 10 years of market research and data on how to do it the best way. There's literally a few months of, if this team's taken 7 transfers, this team took 9, these guys were successful, but there's not really any cause or effect. It's just taking all the information they have. But we just want the same profile player in our program. If they happen to be first year, third year, fourth year, whatever the case, then we feel like we can adapt. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I guess, along those lines, the short-term solutions, trying to make short-term solutions, but also if that goes against maybe the long-term benefit of the program. How do you kind of address those kind of questions?
Well, we're anticipating the scholarship limit going to 15, and so it allows you to take maybe a developmental guy or two, which keeps guys in your program, hopefully. But you try to recruit as many guys as you can that you feel like are good enough, and then the guys that have proven they've done it in the games before, you got to give them a little bit of an upper hand, and then hopefully hold a couple spots for the spring in case you're not injuries or you're incorrect with some assessments, and then you do the best you can.
Stay at that table with Andrew.
Dusty, what do you expect your starting lineup will be to start this season?
I have to check the health of practice today.
Okay.
Obviously, I think 3 or 4 guys we expect to be in that lineup, and there's still a couple more based on practice and health and lineup combinations. I do think this team I think we have a group that we might see a number of different combinations. Like I said, I look at 8 or 9 guys as starting quality players. Not much separation between 1 and 9, 1 and 10 when we're completely healthy. And so it's, we may look at these 2 guys play better together, and the best way for that to happen is them off the bench. Or we may just rotate game by game, depending on the matchup, depending on what that game calls for.
We'll go to your right with Zach Ed. Zach from the Daily.
Hi, Coach. Zach Edwards from the Michigan Daily. How have you seen the returning players kind of help acclimate you and new players to the program, and then how have you kind of seen from them with your own culture, them adapt to that?
I can't compliment those guys enough for what they've how important they've been in recruiting, how important they've been just helping the staff get acclimated, as Tom and Lisa and everyone is trying to help us avoid spending the time on things we don't need to be spending time on. But Will, more than even the intangibles of what they've helped with in recruiting and logistically, like those guys have played well. Will and Amari, they've performed at a high level in practice. They bring a different element to our team that we probably didn't have if those guys didn't stay with us. So we're very, very fortunate that they chose to stay here, and they love Michigan, and that's another thing that is contagious. That until you see the pride in a program and feel it, you don't know. And those guys have both talked about it extensively, how much it means to wear that M. So we're extremely excited to go through this season with those guys still being a part of Michigan.
Coach on your left with Tony.
Yeah.
Hey, Dusty. So you have this whole vision as you're putting all the different pieces together, right? And then throughout the summer, we've asked you, you're like, well, I gotta see it. I understand that, of course, it sounds like there's been some banged up pieces, but what have you liked about the way things have come together, and what are you saying, like, all right, time's kind of ticking, we gotta make sure this part gets together?
And I'm not avoiding the question, but we have a really small sample size. In that sample size, the groups that we thought would click well together have clicked well together. They've found ways this summer to stay out of the big guys have found ways to stay out of each other's space and play off of each other. Defensively, I feel like in the last week we've taken a step forward with the level of intensity that's required. It's there's a different level of pace in the summer and there is in the fall, and you forget how difficult it is to win a possession in the summertime. You forget how tough it is to win a game, a 4-minute period, let alone a Big Ten game. So we haven't had there hasn't been any instances where we thought, man, this would work, and it hasn't. But we don't have a very big sample size. So, but no, I guess immediate fires as of now.
And you mentioned the defense. I think we're starting to we haven't seen it, but get a sense of what you want to do offensively with no one primary ball handler. I guess, what's your main defensive philosophy? What is a typical?
Contain the bounce and stay on balance, and therefore you're a good rebounding team if you can do those things. If you have 5 guys pursuing the rebound every possession, then that starts our break, and that's another reason we need multiple handlers, because we don't want to have to outlet it. Now our centers have notoriously been poor defensive rebounders, but it's more just the emphasis on our guards and forwards to go get it. So you have a guard with a running start who can see the ball fighting, and a big's usually fighting another big. And so it's just kind of a byproduct of how we play. But defensively, I mean, it's intense, but we've got to build guard to basketball. With the way we play schematically, guarding the basketball is paramount.
I stay on your left with Alejandro.
Dusty, with revenue sharing coming to college athletics, Ford has talked about those initial conversations happening. Have you had conversations with him, and what do you hope to get out of revenue sharing when that arrives?
We've discussed it, but before there's a concrete answer, and even all my questions are usually prefaced with, I'm not gonna hold you to this, but what do you think as of today it's going to look like? And most of the answers are, it's still too early to tell. There's people working on that because you don't really know. There's a couple of different directions it could go. What are we looking for? We'd like to have one of the top budgets in the Big Ten and in the country, and have the ability to retain our roster and help attract other high-performing players and driven players. But no, there's nothing concrete, but we've had several discussions.
We'll go back to Andrew.
Dusty, I don't wanna get anybody in trouble, but I think one of your assistants said that early on. You said in the building, you were talking Final Four. You weren't saying just like, let's settle with just making the tournament. What are your expectations for year one?
I don't think I worded it quite like that, but I do think this team we have the individual pieces where we could have a really good basketball team. Obviously, as we all know, once you get to the tournament, the matchups, the breaks, the health, all those things play a factor. But we're a confident group. These guys, like I said, most of them come from programs that they won a lot of games and won championships and things like that. So I don't think they came here to take a step back and not compete for those same championships. But once again, the talk is the talk and the play is the play.
Right in front with Clayton.
You mentioned you guys are a work in progress. January, February, maybe when you hit your stride, all these new pieces coming together and playing in a different type of offense that you run. Has there been clunkiness at all, growing pains as you guys have kind of gotten up to speed?
There's been, yeah, absolutely. There's been clunkiness on both sides of the basketball. There will be as new problems come up in game situations, but our guys have bought in and embraced a play in the style of play that we want to play. In other words, a little bit of a style of play. It's guys sharing the basketball, cutting for each other, moving for each other, screening for each other, taking what the game gives them. All those things, we do feel like our guys have embraced playing that way and staying away from the individual side as much as young players can.
Staying on your right with James.
Going back to the defense, I guess, who are you looking at to be the tone setters on that end of the floor?
Obviously, usually your bigs, your rim protector, and your guards can really impact the energy of possessions of games just out front, guarding the basketball, being disruptive. Reuben Jones was an elite defender. Vlad Goldin was an elite rim protector. Trey Donaldson has a big upside defensively. So those are the guys that jump out. But Roddy Gayle and Namari, they've been great positionally. Danny Wolf's been solid. Will Cheddar, if we can keep him from the unnecessary fouls, he's been a good defender. And we need him to be really good this year. So those are the ones that jump out off the top of my head.
Stay on the right with Sam.
Yeah, Sam Michigan Daily. Dusty, you talked about the part of the program for the returning players. What does it mean to you personally to be the one that's brought in to retool this program now and into the future?
It's an honor just to be the coach of Michigan. But I personally, I don't look at it as it's my responsibility. There's a great team of coaches and staffers around me. And we've brought in guys that have a lot of pride in this program. So I feel like it's a cumulative effort. It's a responsibility of us all. It's on me to set the tone and go in the right direction at all times. But it's a joint effort to get this program back to where it needs to be.
Coach, we're going to go back to the back with Reiner.
Yeah, how much do you view this, you're kind of like solving a puzzle, and is there some kind of invigorating aspect for you to kind of, work through something like this where, there is somewhat of a discovery phase here?
Yeah, it's fun, it's new, and we've discovered some things about players that maybe they just weren't in the right the situation to do certain things at their last program or whatever the case. It's been fun just to get to know new guys. I mean, obviously we've been very busy recruiting and traveling, so we haven't been with them as much as we typically would be as you build a program. But we're excited to go on road trips with our guys and spend 48 hours extensively with them and things like that. But as far as energized, yeah, to see these guys really go out of their way to support each other and try to share the ball and help each other. It's been fun to watch.
And what metrics do you think are particularly applicable to this team? The metrics that you're kind of focused on, specifically tailored to this roster?
Well, we shoot the ball well and we're big. I don't want to say we're a really good rebounding team yet. We're not. We probably made some errors this summer and some things we were focused on that probably aren't going to work out as well as I had hoped. So turning the basketball over, when you can shoot it well and you can rebound it, the Achilles heel is turning it over. We have been a little bit loose with the basketball, but that's to be expected when we play at the pace we are every day. I mean, I don't think we've ever implemented this style and didn't turn it over a lot earlier just because everything's moving. It's like listening to a podcast in 2X. It's just going a lot faster, so you're obviously not going to retain the same amount of information you would at 1X. And so we're not overreacting to that. If it's still an issue in 5 or 10 games, then we might have to change some things schematically. But for the most part, that's to be expected. And so it just, we have to be patient with that and make sure that they're learning through film and learning from those mistakes.
Chris?
You talked this summer about the shooting and you wanted to see them live. How have you gone in terms of those numbers? Are you reaching those goals?
Yeah, we've shot it well. Not quite as well as I thought as we would. I got a report last night, and when you take out late shot clock threes in the last 3 seconds of a clock, we don't really evaluate that right now in the scheme of our team building. But we've shot it well, catch and shoot threes. We've generated good shots. A good percentage of them have been open threes, uncontested threes, which is what we take pride in. But then, like I said, the flip side of it is then you're wondering if you're just not guarding or if you're not closing out well. So that's always the dilemma in preseason. But yeah, we've shot the ball well. We have a good shooting group.
And then your better teams usually have those alphas that kind of take teams on their back. Have you identified any of those guys yet that really kind of stepped up as leaders in that role?
I do think that was a little bit misconstrued about our teams before. We had some guys that weren't our most productive players that were the leaders of our team and had the locker room. Yeah, we have a few. I mean, I think Will Cheddar, I don't think anyone in this room expects him to lead us in scoring, but he's had as big of a role as far as leadership, modeling behavior, being a voice, sharing his experiences in this conference. A lot of us are new to this conference. I've been to this conference in a while. And so he and Namari and Jace and a few of the other guys have really helped just, when we don't call fouls in practice, Roddy Gayle's another one, then we just remind the guys that we don't know how the game's going to be called, but the Big Ten's notoriously physical. Big Ten and Big East, they call less fouls, so we've got to be prepared to play through that. But yeah, Will's the one that steps out as a guy that's really had a strong voice.
On the back with Steve.
Dusty, what do you know about coaching Michigan now that you didn't know when you took the job? And also if you can touch on your relationship with John Beilein and how that's impacted.
What I didn't know now, or what I know now that I didn't know then, man, that's a great question. Because I held this place in such high regard, and so I'll get back with you on that one. I've learned a lot about Michigan and the people that are associated with it, but there's not one thing that jumps out, because like I said, I revered this place from afar. And as far as Coach Beilein, I lean on him for advice. Even as much as he's shared with where I should get my haircut and things like that, just to try to help make my life simpler. We have a very cluttered lifestyle as coaches, especially taking over a new program with the work that we need to put in. But I spoke with him yesterday, and it's leaning on him for, what was your thought process here? How did you respond to this? Why did you do this? What was your thought process here? And obviously the game's changed and the profession's changed, but I don't think he's given me an answer where I didn't think, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I can see why you're going to be in the Hall of Fame before you're done.
Go back to Keller.
Dusty, you obviously you mentioned that it's a small sample size, but the adjustment from high school to college can be a lot, especially for guards coming in. You got a 3-person freshman class here with LJ, Durrell, and Justin. What have you seen from them so far, and do you feel like they've adjusted with this team so far in terms of like learning new things and learning on the fly and everything like that?
Yeah, they have. I'll start with Pip, and Pip probably got off to the best start. The first couple weeks that he was able to work out, he looked like a seasoned vet. He was tough. He was poised. You would think he's a fifth year. You think he's a 6-year senior that's had a couple medical red shirts as far as his pace and the way he plays. And he hasn't practiced much since he had a medical procedure. He'll be back very soon, and so we haven't seen him a lot of him. Brooks had an injury this summer. He came in with a knee issue, and so he didn't practice, I would say, the first 5 or 6 weeks. Lately, he's really coming into his own. He's getting more confident in his jump shot. Extremely disruptive defensively. I mean, his ability. I don't want to say this too loud, but he could play. He could be playing out in front of 111,000 fans on a Saturday as far as his ball instincts. He just brings a lot to the table. I think his intangibles. He's a great teammate. I don't think there's been 1 minute of a practice where I haven't thought, man, I love coaching Fat. He's that type of guy. And he started to play much better recently, as I said. Kaysen has been a real bright spot. His durability, I don't know if he's missed a practice yet, or however many workouts we've had practices. He's performed at a high level, and to be honest, his ability to create one-on-one opportunities is what he does best. And even though we don't play like that a lot as a group, when teams switch and bog you down, you need somebody that can create that advantage on their own. And he's been as good as anyone on our roster at creating offense. I think he's shooting almost 50% off the bounce from 3 over whatever it is now, 30 to 50 practices on a pretty big sample size. So you never know if they can do it in a game, but he's a guy that's very confident. He won state championships in high school. He was in big time games in the AAU circuit. And so past performance, I guess, would predict that he's going to be ready to help us as a freshman.
Steve right there with Jake.
Hey Dusty, you guys are playing a lot of tough non-conference opponents before you get into Big Ten play this year. Were these matchups largely you're doing, were they kind of predetermined? And if some of these matchups were you're doing, what's kind of the benefit of playing so many tough teams like Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Virginia Tech before you get into this gauntlet of Big Ten play?
It's more of a confidence in our group. I think we inherited the Fort Myers tournament. The MTEs are usually planned well in advance. Other than that, I think we scheduled every other game. We had a blank canvas. To be honest, we have confidence in our guys. We felt like an older group like this, once they want to play in big games. We wanted Michigan to be back on national television, playing in historic environments like MSG, and then playing quality programs. Wake Forest is picked in the top 3 of the ACC. TCU is, if anyone knows anything about Jamie Dixon, then the guy just finds a way to win almost every single year at a high level. And just going back to what we changed our philosophy 3 or 4 years ago, where we just felt like the teams that really scheduled aggressively early, they improved. They were challenged, they were exposed, their warts were out in the open, and they stayed the course, and they improved because of all that. And you might take some hits early. I think I've seen several of the metrics where we're top 5 schedule in the country. Did we intend to be one of the best, toughest schedules in the country? No, but we definitely wanted to play Arkansas and Wake Forest and those guys, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be challenging. It's going to test our resolve because some of those teams are physical, they're tough, but like I said, it's more with having confidence in the guys in our locker room.
Back over here with Tom.
Yeah, Desi, you talk about Will being the alpha guy. Is there a go-to guy on the offensive side of the ball? Michigan's been lacking this in the last couple of years, and is Roddy Gayle from Ohio State, we've seen him play, would he fill that role potentially, or any other?
Roddy he's definitely capable of being that guy on any given night. He's performed incredibly well the last few weeks. He's played at a high level. Danny Wolf is another guy, and a lot of it with us is the matchups. It's the creating the advantage and then playing off of each other. We don't really want to get in. We don't get into a lot of situations where we just throw it to a guy and expect him to go get us a basket, because usually he's playing with 4 other guys, and we just think that's the least efficient way to play. But then, without a doubt, we could throw it to Roddy on an elbow, and we feel like he can go get us a basket, and we will do that some. But yeah, that's a great question. Vlad down low, if we can find a way to get him one-on-one coverage in the post, he's a go-to guy. But yeah, Roddy's been someone that if we can get him the ball in space, he's been able to convert. He gets to the foul line, he's shooting the basketball well. But that would be very realistic to say that Roddy's that guy in the last 2 minutes of the game to get him the ball, and he can get us a basket, a late shot clock, or whatever.
Back to Ryan.
You know, a lot of debate of the Big Ten style. Do you feel a need to adapt to that, or is it as much of a thing because obviously you're, Big Ten's incorporating 4 new teams, you know, from another part of the country?
Yeah, I do think it'll be a little bit different because the officials, there'll be West Coast group of officials officiating, and that league was a little bit different. And, but we're gonna adjust to how the game's being played. Obviously, the size, strength of the Big Ten is part of the culture of the league, and justified or not, it doesn't matter. But yeah, we do feel like we're gonna have to, you play with great physicality. We do feel like you can always pull it back a little bit and play with less physicality if you need to, but we don't feel like we're one of the more physical teams in the Big Ten. That's one area of concern is physicality, so we're addressing that, and without a doubt, we can always pull it back if we're fouling too often.
Is there an argument though for maybe going against the grain and not conforming necessarily to what was previously here?
Yeah, I mean, we everything we do, we'd like to be a little bit different from the norm. We want to play a little bit faster. We probably want to shoot a few more threes. We want to switch a little bit more. Whatever the case, do something different that teams don't see every day. But as far as playing without physicality defensively, I think if we didn't play with physicality, we wouldn't get enough stops to be able to push tempo and score the way we want to. So they go hand in hand. You know, we do feel like we have a group that we can adjust, and that's part of the NCAA tournament, preseason games, these tournaments. You have to be able to play slow, you have to be able to play fast, you have to be able to win when you don't shoot well, you have to be, it's just that's the game of basketball that makes it so unique. You play so many games against so many different types of opponents. If you're gonna have a great season, or a really good season, you have to be able to adapt and play different styles. So we would much rather play with great physicality right now and be able to pull it back than to be playing powder puff and try to pick it up later.
And lastly, this roster, can play many different styles, I mean, based on what you've observed?
I think so. I mean, the staff, we were very intentional to build a roster that we had positional versatility, we had good size, we had enough speed and quickness, so we do think so.
Coach, it's time for a couple more. We'll go Eli and then John.
You touched on before, maybe you wouldn't be surprised if there's a new high scorer over that. Is that more a product of the motion system you run, or is it a product of the roster that you've created?
A little bit of both. I mean, we want guys to take what the game gives us. If there's 2 on the basketball, we expect that guy to pass it, even if he's our leading scorer. But we also believe that because we're putting good shooters over there and over there, that he's got a lot of trust and faith that he's going to make the right play as well. So I do think it's a product of how we're built. We didn't go sign anyone that got 25 a game at a lower level, because we do value the team game, and we enjoy coaching it when everyone's doing it together and everyone's involved. We don't really have guys stand in the corners for 20 to 25 seconds because we do think these young guys want to be involved, not necessarily shoot it, but they want to be involved in the game. But also because we have a lot of guys we think are double-digit quality scorers, and on that given night, you know, maybe it's a matchup, maybe the ball just finds them a little more often, and they take advantage.
Over here with John.
Coach Vlad said that you won him over forever when he messed up in one of his early FAU games, and you met with him and said basically it was okay to fail because he was in a learning process. Can you talk about the psychology of picking your spots in those sorts of situations and working with guys and being tough on them, and then?
Well, I think the personality of the player is very important, and if it's a player that's aloof and maybe they're selfish and whatever the case, then maybe you remind them that their actions can cost the group. In that particular moment, and to be honest, I'd forgotten about it until Vlad brought it up. I think Vlad had actually tipped a ball in for the other team. Wasn't physical enough on a rebound, and it happens as a young big. And the message was that we're obviously not going to go back and change it, but we need to learn from it and make sure this never happens again. You have 3 more years of college basketball. There's no other way to change a habit than to feel the way you feel right now, and because you have character, and I don't think he's just missed a play like that since. And to be honest, I felt like there was a game last year where I made an error, that a judgment error, maybe it's a substitution or whatever, and you know, you never know. You know, we're making a bet, and he reminded me of that moment that we win together, we lose together, and it was a very similar situation from a few years prior. So that's just, you know, we all show up and we're very accountable to each other. To if I make a mistake, or if our players make a mistake, I want them to feel really, I guess, the guilt towards their teammates, and really try to fix it versus the backlash or the losing or whatever the case, just the accountability that we're all in this doing our absolute best every single day. And I do think the accountability, because they're doing it together, because they're accountable to each other, because they bring other guys with them to the gym, then it means a little bit more than it would otherwise.
Okay, Coach, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.
And we got the
Appreciate you
job